What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 60 of the Trainer Scoop podcast. Today, I'm very happy to be joined by none other than Mr. Rory Hougan. Rory is a strength and speed coach who also dabbles in coaching powerlifting and bodybuilding. You're a student, overall hilarious guy. I mean, what other accolades can I add to that, Rory? Introduce yourself to the people, my man.
Incredibly blessed would definitely be up there, and we didn't necessarily start out with all those accolades, right? And it's not something that you just do all by yourself, right? So I've been blessed to be, given to great parents, because you don't get to pick those, right? You're given to them, and have chosen some great mentors along the way, and have also some really bad ones, and you learn from both of those, and getting into all that, it's really a matter of perspective. You have to stay kind of, I'm not awake yet, man. This is my first cup of coffee. You got to stay kind of,
You're good, bro.
in your mental lane when you're going through your life seasons. Like if you always think about, oh yeah, I'm the shit when it comes to this and that and the other, and you forget about, who got you there.
Yeah.
And not saying that I am the shit, but you're trying to gas me up. I feel like, all right, yeah, like I know I'm pretty cool. That's a self-love thing. That's not a cockiness and arrogance thing. It used to be, though, back before I realized that, gratitude and, being humble were a thing. I walked around, like a high school baseball player with a stick up my ass. I will say I am pretty funny. I'm a little out of pocket sometimes, but I don't necessarily like bragging about myself anymore. It used to be something that got the old rocks off, but it's not really a thing anymore, man.
Right. Well, I will say, Rory is a guy that I was connected with through Ricky. If you haven't listened, I believe that's episode 56 or 57. Go back and check that one out, guys. And I'm very happy to be linked up with you, man, because we have some very high level conversations in the DMs. So I'm real confident that, we're not going to gas you up too much. We're going to gas you up, don't get me wrong, but also just provide a ton of value to the listeners, because I know there's a ton of great thoughts in there when it comes to, like I said, strength training, speed training, hypertrophy training, wealth of knowledge, man. So kind of just like rewind it back. Tell me briefly how you kind of got into this whole thing and decided to make it your career. Oh, is that Ricky?
Yeah. Ready
What
with
up,
the
bro? A cameo from the man. Oh, you got the angle on. Oh,
Did I send you the video of us singing in the kitchen?
I don't think so.
Oh, dude. Dude. Oh, man. All right,
I'm going to put this on the podcast.
Oh, fantastic. My small arms, and then Ricky's rather mid-level, if we're being honest.
See you, David. See you, man.
I gotta let him out. I'll be right out.
Yep. Alrighty, guys. I might or might not keep this part in. Rory had to go basically move his car so Ricky could get out of their garage parking spot situation. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. I don't sleep very much.
Mm.
I'm the head coach of the facility I coach at, and I'm also in grad school. So the opportunity for sleep is very minimum. It's a very do as I say, not as I do position, right?
Yeah.
Got to make sure you get 7 to 9 hours of sleep to maximize your gains. I'm getting like 4.
Oh,
at most.
Dude, run me through the schedule.
I have a sleeping bag in the office, and I'll nap between coaching sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And then if no one shows up, get that extra hour in that nap time, man. It gets me through the day. Oh yeah. Yeah. So, Monday through Friday, waking up, alarm goes off at 4 a.m. I would love to, be like Jocko and say, I wake up 3 minutes before my alarm. The alarm goes off, boom, discipline, right up. No shot, right?
That's the life of a strength coach, huh?
A bad one. That's the life of a bad strength coach.
Oh yeah.
So alarm goes off at 4 a.m. You got to get the 3 S's, the shit, shower, shave, and breakfast. Right now, I'm actually dieting. Ricky and I are looking at doing a gym shoot around beginning of March.
Nice.
So I look like a football coach and not a bodybuilder. So we're trying to tighten it up a little bit, And so breakfast right now is 4 eggs, cup of egg whites, and I'm not trying to get super shredded. I got a DEXA. I'm at like 19% body fat. Trying to get down to like 14, 15. I got 3.5 months, whatever.
What's your shirt? I saw it said D1.
This is my work uniform, man. So it's D1 Pickerington.
Hell yeah, dude.
We're getting these black on black hoodies, limited edition.
Yeah.
And I thought I was gonna get they're numbered 1 through 23, because it's 2023 in like 10 days. Can you believe that? Don't know why. So I don't bodybuild anymore. So I'm a firm believer, if you're not a competitive bodybuilder, you shouldn't hate your life over a diet. So I'm doing the maple brown sugar Quaker instant oatmeal.
Nice.
Yeah. That stuff is incredible. It's second only to the dinosaur egg instant oatmeal. You really can't get better than the dino egg instant oats.
I've never had it. The look of just utter disappointment. He's almost sign off this podcast. Oh, okay. He's back.
All right, we're gonna put this on Instagram as like a poll. Have you had? We're gonna cut this, right? Have you had dinosaur egg instant oatmeal? Yes or no? And that's how we're going to promote this video. High level strength and conditioning conversation. Dino egg instant oatmeal? Yes or no? That's really the only PED you ever really need. 8 hours of sleep, dino egg oatmeal. Oh, that's a bummer. My one college baseball player is not coming to training today. That was why I was looking at my phone.
Oh, you're good, dude.
I can't not work. I don't know how to turn it off. I was at dinner with my girlfriend at Olive Garden, right? Which is the most authentic Italian restaurant you could ever go to.
Peak cuisine.
And so good. You can't go wrong with bread and garlic and cheese,
Right.
Now when you go to Olive Garden, David, I'm the captain now, right? I'm doing the interview. What's your favorite what's your go-to Olive Garden entree? And you can't say breadsticks because that is an appetizer. Now I know you could definitely eat an entree's worth portion of breadsticks because they're so damn good, but entree at Olive Garden.
Yeah, I think it's like the steak gorgonzola pasta, something like that.
You like gorgonzola cheese, man?
I do. I'm a big gorgonzola guy.
Man, you're a better man than I.
Dude, it's like sucking on toes,
Dude, yeah. Someone's got it. It's a dirty job. Someone's got to do it.
Somebody's got to do it.
I played football my senior year, and we're gonna get super serious here for a second. So I played football in 8th grade. I wasn't allowed to play football until 8th grade because my mom didn't want this. Cut my hair's all I have. Come on, man. This is horrible. Yeah, so I played football in 8th grade, and that's a good shot. Yeah.
Oh my god, bro.
I was trying to figure. Like my webcam isn't like a clamp. It's just like it just rests up here.
Okay.
And it's annoying.
Right.
Okay. So I played football in 8th grade, and I was, pretty good at football. I never really played because I was just lazy. And when you play football at a scholastic level, you've got the starters, and then everybody else is on scout, right? So like when the team offense is going, and you want to get reps, on defense, you got to go in on defense, like the scout team, to play against the offense.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go in like every now and again, but my whole life I have absolutely hated feeling out of breath because it makes me feel like I'm drowning. And I just didn't go in, I was just kind of there. And I paid attention, so I knew all the plays, I knew how to do it. And like when I went in, I played well. I was just lazy. And, I quit freshman year after getting, harassed by the coaches. And no one really communicated with me that that's just how football is. Like the coaches are going to, insult you and yell at you and all this stuff. So because I didn't understand that, I thought they had hated me, right? So I quit freshman year, like the beginning of 2-a-days. And when I was a junior in high school, this guy came in to school, and he shot 6 people and killed 3 of them. And all 3 of those guys I played football with in 8th grade. And then
Where'd you
the
go to
4th
school?
one, I went to Chardon High School. So about
Okay.
10 years ago, coming
Yeah.
up in February, we had a school shooting.
Yeah.
And
I know a couple other kids that went there. And
yeah,
that's just been
so
a really
like
tough thing.
these guys that I played football with got murdered. And then the guy that was the starting center, and most of these guys still played football at the time. He's paralyzed for the rest of his life. And big shout out to my algebra 2 teacher, Mr. Ritchie, who it's Ricci, it's Ricci, right? Like Christina Ricci, So anyway, I went back to play my senior year, in part because these guys that I played with were killed and they could no longer play. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want to waste this opportunity. And so I didn't really ever go to the lifting because it was optional. And I was, I never understood, because I was kind of clueless when I was. We're gonna start over. Welcome to the Trainer Scoop podcast. My name is Rory Hougan. I'm joined here by David Martin, and we're gonna talk about hard drugs and hookers, and living hard and living fast, right?
Making gains.
Yeah, yeah.
You might not have been the most serious about like training. It was an optional thing for football. And then did you just fall in love with it once you started, or how did that all go down?
So I started working. So I went to Peru when I was 16. We're going to back up a little bit. I started doing P90X, and I started working out with P90X because I was tired of being fat. So I was really, really a big guy back in the day. I weighed about what I weigh now, but I couldn't even do like a push up on my knees or like run the length of the basketball court without being winded. And so I started doing P90X, and, I thought I had discovered this big secret. So I became incredibly dogmatic about training. It was like P90X, insanity. It's the only way to go, bro. And I got in pretty decent like cardio shape. I didn't get my 6-pack abs in 90 days like Tony Horton said I would, and I was very upset with Tony Horton after that. And So I did P90X instead of all this lifting for football. So like I went to a few of them. And then I stopped going. I went to these lifts, and like when you're in the group setting, you know, as a team, and you have football coaches that aren't strength coaches trying to coach strength, there's not a whole lot of coaching that goes on. It's very limited. Here's the move, right? And then they do it, and like you're expected to just do it perfectly. And like the only answer, if you can't do it right, is go lighter. There's no like technical cueing involved or anything like that, or you know, anthropometric, you know, considerations. It's like, all right, we're doing power snatches off the floor. There was like this no coaching. So I did end up injuring my shoulder a little bit trying to do this power snatch. Because I didn't know how to do it, and I had never seen anything like that before. I had not been exposed to Olympic weightlifting in any capacity because I had no social media until I went to college, aside from Facebook. That was a dark time for me. I was the high school kid that would argue politics, and then when someone would get mad, I would hit him with, "Oh, your argument's invalid because it's this logical fallacy." I was that guy, and yeah. No exposure to Olympic weightlifting, injured my shoulder. I'm like, screw this. I'm doing P90X. And P90X2 came out. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. You know, I was doing these med ball push-ups. And it was really cool for me because I could never do a push-up growing up. And then all of a sudden I could do like 50 because that was the only way you train chest in P90X, right? Like you did push-ups. There was no. And then what ended up happening was it was midway through the season when I was senior year, that company came out with this bodybuilding program, and this dude was yoked, right? And claimed natty. I look at him now like, dude, there's no shot. This dude was natty. He had like these capped out delts and just like full as fuck all the time. No way he was natty. He's like, natural bodybuilding is my life's path. Like, dude, you're geared out of your mind. And but I started doing that program in my basement, my parents' house. I had this sweet setup. I had this utility bench. I still have that bench. I had it in my garage gym when I lived in a house. And it was like dumbbells. I got this easy curl bar that you just load the 1-inch hole plates on for like curls. Dude, that thing, yeah, that program was cool. It was a lot of fun. And after that, I started training at the YMCA in town, and I actually got booted from the YMCA for deadlifting 315. So like So I went to my youth pastor was also Mr. Natural Ohio, right? So not Mr. Ohio, Mr. Natural. So he did the Lieberman. He won the Lieberman. He actually got, I think, like 7th at Team Universe when Team Universe was still a thing, drug-free, which is pretty legit. And he trained like D8s, right? So he came to the Y with me, and we were in there screaming at each other like blood and guts, right? The YMCA. You got all these old people on like the elliptical, like looking at us, like, what the hell? And these guys are monsters. And I'm just like this fat kid with my youth pastor, just like getting it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was funny. And so it's deadlifting. And I deadlifted 3 plates for the first time. And they were like, if you ever do that again, we're throwing you out. So like the next time I went to Walmart and I bought a Superman shirt. And I went in there and I put 315 on the bar without a warm up, and I picked it up and I dropped it, and they said, "You're done." And I walked out.
Oh my God.
I walked out like big man on campus, Superman t-shirt on. I thought I was so strong, man. And
That's awesome.
you know, I was 17 years old, like, you know, and I, you know, 2 years prior I couldn't do a push-up, you know, deadlifted 315. It's not the, obviously it's not a, you know, we're using push-ups as a fitness marker, not a strength marker, but like,
Right.
Real fat kid.
Dude, I got to tell my 315 story.
All right, hit me with it.
It's funny. So I was visiting my friend because said I was going to go to Ohio State, visiting a friend that was like a junior, I think. So I was a senior in high school. He was a junior at school, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, I'll just sneak you into the RPAC. Like, don't even worry about it. You don't have to pay." So we snuck in. He basically was like, "I'm gonna go in the back way. I'm gonna put all of our shit in a locker, and then I'll come out. We'll go up front, and it'll be like, hey, can I show my friend? He's visiting. Can I show my friend the gym?" Snuck in. It worked great. We changed, and I'm like, I'm gonna hit 315 today. I've never hit it before, but I was like, I'm at Ohio State in the gym. Like, I got to turn up a little bit. I shook like a motherfucker
Oh, I
talking
bet.
talking about to black out. And he was like, dude, we're fucked. He's like, I was 100% sure you were about to fall backwards over that bar while you were holding 315 and it was going to roll up on you and crush you. And we snuck in. So there's no like health insurance. He's like, I'm about to get booted out of this motherfucker.
Yeah.
But somehow I got it and didn't black out.
You got a
It's such a
video of
great.
that?
No, dude, no.
Oh
I
man.
wish. I didn't really record myself back then,
Yeah.
but that was a funny one. It sounds like yours was pretty memorable as well.
Yeah. Yeah. The first time I deadlifted 405 was at the gym I was going to after that. So the gym I was going to after that in my hometown is actually like a hidden gem. Like it's one of the best gyms I've ever been to. And I've been in gyms all over the country.
What's it called?
And it's called Everybody's Gym.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're ever up in Cleveland sometime and I'm up there at the same time, I'll take you over there. It's awesome. The owner's legit. He's a really, really good dude. He also owns Pioneer Waterland, which is this water park. And every Halloween, he turns it into a fright fest. So he pays like 200 actors to like dress up and special effects makeup and stuff. And it's like a corn maze and it's at night and it's this water park in the middle of the woods. It's awesome.
That's sweet.
And so initially when I started going there, it was in a strip mall and it was right next to GNC. And I worked at that GNC probably for about 8 weeks. And then I got canned so the manager could hire her friend, which, was interesting. And then it moved into this big warehouse and it's huge. It's got graffiti all over the walls and like it's got a ton of different rooms. So there's like a powerlifting room. And I remember I headbutt the wall before I deadlifted 405. And there's like a chip out of the wall in the paint and it's still there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny as hell.
Ripping 405. And, that was deadlifting 405 was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And it still is when you're young, pulling 405
Right.
is legit, right?
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you're in high school and you're ripping 405.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
I remember the first time. Yeah, 405 was a good feeling. And then 500, you're just like, fuck, whatever.
500 like just happened.
Yeah.
And it took me forever to get over 6. And like, the first time I deadlifted over 600 pounds was actually at the old Elite FTS before it moved out to the new spot it's at. I went with my buddy Chuck, and not Chuck Vogelpohl, right? Like my buddy Chuck is like the Forrest Gump of strength sports. He just like gets in with people, and he's just like this goofy dude. Yeah, he's like buddies with Stan Efferding. I remember, I think the Olympia where Flex Wheeler came back. Stan like flew him out to Vegas to like hang out with him and Flex, and I'm like, dude, Chuck, what? That's sweet.
Wild.
R.I.P. Flex Wheeler's leg.
Right.
Pour one out. But, yeah, I pulled 625. It was the first time I pulled over 600, and that was legit. And then after that, I didn't pull 600 for like another 2 years. Like I just couldn't. It just didn't happen. It's the Elite FTS effect, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was training at the Y, training at Everybody's, and when I was doing that program in my basement, I was like, I want to do a bodybuilding show. And then I started telling guys on the football team, and I was still kind of like a black sheep on the football team because I was still a lazy guy, right? And it was really funny because I remember I don't remember who we were playing, but we were smoking them. And my 8th grade line coach, Coach Beery, beer with a Y at the end, right? It looked like Burgess Meredith, Mickey from Rocky.
Oh yeah.
And like about that age too. Like he was like 70, 80 years old and he was coaching football. He'd been coaching football in my hometown for like 40 years. Dude's forgotten more about football than any of us have ever known. And the nose guard's helmet came off and I was standing next to him. So he just threw me in. He just like threw me in. And I remember being on the line. They're like, dude, do you even know what to do? Because I never went in, right? I paid attention.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I'm going to throw the center into the quarterback. And like they kind of laughed at me. And I did. I threw the center into the quarterback and I got a sack.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, and then like on the next play, like I'm like jogging off, right? Because you have to come out for one play if the helmet comes off. I'm like jogging out, they're like, stay out there. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, all right. I made it to the show, boys. And I blocked the punt. And then
shit.
They took me out for the rest of the game. And then the next day I'm like second string JV because I was first year senior. And we were in the huddle. They put me on offense. It was left tackle. And I'm in the huddle, and the guard is like 5'7".
Oh God.
Right, the guy next to me. His name was Karikas. Great dude. I miss those guys. I say that, but they all bullied me.
Real quick,
great.
Did you go to school with Zach Gaspar?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. That's awesome. Do you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah,
School.
Gaspar's the man. Gaspar's the man, dude. He never bullied me.
I was gonna wonder. I was like, I couldn't
Yeah.
see him doing that.
No, Gaspar's the man. I haven't seen that dude in like 10 years.
Yeah.
I say shit like that, and I'm like, I feel old. And then I realize I'm not. Like, man. But I remember
We're getting up there. But we're still young.
I'm like in this huddle, and he looks at me and he's like, do you even know the plays? I'm like, yeah, I'm not a dumbass. I pay attention.
Right.
It was like, all right, what are you doing? I was like, I'm going there and I'm blocking out the end and then I'm going second level. And he's like, oh, okay. Pancake to the end.
I was gonna say, did you just fuck up these JV kids after fucking up the varsity team?
And then I'm like running at the linebacker and he just like stepped away. he just like said to the side and was like, I'm out.
Oh, that's funny. That training started to pay off, bro.
I guess I've always been like really strong at like dumb shit. And I credit my dad. My dad is like the definition of old man strength. So I don't know if you've ever seen Parks and Rec, but my dad looks exactly like Ron Swanson.
Oh yeah.
Exactly like him. And I remember we had a riding mower and we had to replace the blade because it might have been me. I don't know. I had run over like a baseball or something and it like cracked the blade or whatever. And we were going to replace it. And my dad, it's a Cub Cadet. So the motor's in the front. It's not in the back. Right. And he like just like one-handed like suitcase deadlifted the whole front end of this lawnmower up with one hand. He's like, hey, slide this block under here. Like not even out of breath at all. He's like, slide this under here. Well, prop it up and fix the blade. I'm like, okay.
Fuck.
And I got him to do like a workout with me one time and he's doing like overhead triceps with like a 5-pound dumbbell. He's like, this is really heavy. And I'm like, shut up, Michael. I just watched you like pick up a 500-pound lawnmower and you're telling me this one dumbbell is heavy.
It's got to be a mindset thing.
I don't know, but like, I've always been good at like just like picking things up, not lifting weights. Cause like when you're just picking something up, that's like a weird object. It's really more about just like how much muscle can you put into this thing? Obviously in things like strongman, there's technique involved, but if like you're picking up a tree, like I remember there's one time this tree fell across the driveway and my mom's like, I'm gonna be late for work. I'm like, got it. Went out there and just like picked that thing up, dragged it out the side. Like, oh, cool. So I've always been like, I don't know. I always call it like cornbread strong,
Yeah.
cornbread, corn fed, baby. Just that, like, I never grew up on a farm, right? But it's like that farm boy strength. I was so bad at lifting weights. I remember, like, when I was a senior, I was lifting with the football team. The couple times I did, like, I couldn't squat like 135. But I was like able to like go head to head with the starters and not get obliterated. Like, it was like an even match. And like these guys
Mhm.
are squatting like 315, 365. And I think it's, I think there's a lot to be said about not thinking about what you're trying to do and just doing it when it comes to performance. And like, oh yeah, I'm just going to pick that up. Fantastic. Right. But when you go set up for like a deadlift, what are you thinking about when you go up to the bar? Like, what's your thought process when you go up to a bar?
Yeah. I mean, I think
If yeah.
overarching, just make it as efficient and easy as possible. Um, and then
So
I
like
guess
so
that,
like so like you walk up to the bar, right? And you get your feet set. Like, what do you like go through like a checklist of things? Like, okay,
mm-hmm.
my feet go here. I need
Yeah.
to, I need to hinge back a little bit before I squat
Yeah.
down and grab the bar. Like, do you think like
Yeah.
step by step, like technical what I'm gonna do, or you say I'm just gonna fucking rip this thing?
I think more technical.
Okay, yeah. So like the thing, like, because you don't ever like max like your pull or anything, right? You're more
Not
bodybuilding.
anymore.
So like,
Yeah.
yeah. So like, it's a little bit different there. Like, if you're doing an AMRAP, it's like go, right? Um, but how long have you been deadlifting?
Oh, I started deadlifting when I was like just almost 17. And then I
Okay.
deadlifted like pretty consistently up until like last year. And I kind of injured my hip. So what was that, like a good 7 years ish?
So like, would you consider yourself to be pretty technically proficient in that lift?
Mm. Toward the end, I definitely was. I'd say for like 5 years, no, because
Okay.
I would always have like a lordotic spine. I didn't really understand like hinging the hips
Okay.
back. Um, but I could always pull like decent weight with some shitty ass form. Like I hit
Hmm.
like 485 for two with some shit
Right.
form. And then I got like barely over 500 when I really like focused in on it.
Okay.
That was about where I capped.
So what is the main like hinge that you're doing now? Like RDLs?
Yeah, dude. Like I struggle with a lot of hinges because I still just get like flare ups with the hip.
Okay. Is
But
it in the front or is it the back?
yeah, it's kind of like the side. Like I popped the, not completely dislodged it, but like
Uh-huh.
the head of the femur kind of just like got out of the acetabulum a little bit, and
Okay.
then it put a lot of strain on all the tendons and connective stuff. And then
Gotcha.
my hips just rotated because I left it untreated for like months and months, and
Sick.
yeah, it's just always kind of
Yeah.
painful. Like I feel like a weird shifting, so I'm working on getting that back to like on point. But
Dude, that's
yeah,
awesome.
it's been a fun little experiment.
Yeah, dude, that's legit. So yeah, I wonder when we train if I could take a look at that and
Yeah.
see if something is you know we'll go back to the accolades. And I have a pretty good eye for like minute details when it comes to lifting, which was
Hmm.
actually kind of my downfall when I started coaching,
Hmm.
right? Because you know when you're coaching athletes, particularly young ones, that don't necessarily have a proprioception of their body yet, doing like those little tiny technical things don't do anything for
Yeah.
them, because like they don't even understand where their hips are.
Hmm.
So when we're very young, our entire world is our hands and our face, and so everything is hand and face oriented when it comes to like our nervous system. So one of the things that I do when I'm doing sprint training is I'll have the athletes walk back on their heels for training the tib,
Yeah.
because you don't want pointed toes when you're sprinting. That's a great way to not hit your maximum velocity, because as the toe strikes, the heel has to come down and then it has to come back up. Whereas opposed if you hit like here in the middle of your foot, you're immediately springing off. So you need to have a good connection, a good level of strength in your tib in order to be maximally fast. And there's this one kid who he quite literally cannot tell his hands from his feet. So like when you stand on your heels, right? You're extending, all that foot like this, right? And this is your heel, and you're walking like this. When he does that, his hands also do this.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's really, he's like 8. So it's interesting to see just how like the brain creates these shortcuts for itself when you're coaching movement. Kind of like if you take your hand and you try to like move all your fingers, and like if you just try to like move, you see how like some of the other fingers kind of go with it, right?
Yeah.
And like if you really focus, you can move them, but it's not fast. And I go fast, everything else moves.
Yeah.
It's like a neurological shortcut. So because he doesn't have the proprioception of his feet yet to do that on its own, he also does it with his hands, and that tells his brain, this is how I do it with my feet.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Okay, so kind of related. When I was younger, like playing baseball as a kid, I have pictures of me like in the batter's box, like my tongue would be like either at the side of my mouth or like slightly sticking out. And now when I'm like grinding through a hard set, I'll chew the fuck out of my tongue. And people are like, you need to stop. Like
You gotta get a mouth guard.
Yeah. I wonder if that's something similar where
those new age mouthpieces are sick, man.
New
the
age
ones that like Brian Shaw is sponsored by.
Okay.
Those are legit. I had one for the longest time because I would grind my teeth when I lifted. And it's because I end up driving stability through the rest of my body, through my neck and my jaw. And then what ended up happening was I would grind my teeth in my sleep. And I would wake up with these headaches. And I had this mouth guard for a while. I don't know what happened to it, but it's really funny because like, you watch the Shark Tank episode, right? Where they give the guy the mouth guard and all of a sudden he's like lifting this thing and blah, blah, blah. And it's not because the mouth guard makes you stronger. It's because you clamp it down with your jaw, right? And then your brain ends up driving stability through your nervous system, through other parts of your body. So it makes you more stable. So like you may or may not notice, like if you're doing like, if you're ever doing Bulgarians and I don't know if you're ever using like one dumbbell or 2 dumbbells. I don't know how you do it. But if you're doing on body weight, like to warm up, you may or may not notice you're clenching your fists. So, and because this will end up stabilizing the rest.
Yeah. And I feel like I do that.
Yeah. Or like if you're doing, like when I do Bulgarians, obviously if you're going for hypertrophy, you want the most stability, right? So like you hold onto a squat rack upright or something. Now I'm lazy, so I'm not taking, a 90 or 100 over to a squat rack to do Bulgarians from the dumbbell rack, right? So I'll use like a PVC pipe and for balance. And it's really interesting because like once you're like, oh yeah, like your brain will drive stability through other parts of your body. You ever do abs? You're crunching your neck real hard. Yeah. So that's that.
Okay.
It's the exact same thing. Or like guys that are benching, right? That'll like crane their neck. Oh, I'm doing that so I can see if the bar touches.
Right.
Like, are you?
Yeah.
Really? It's not like you can't feel the bar touching your chest.
Yeah.
Different in like a shirt, right? So like when you're in the shirt, right? I've put a shirt on once, and I remember my buddy Josh, I trained with him in West Virginia. He trained at Westside for a while after that, and he's benched like 740 at 220, which is pretty gangster. He held the world record for a while, single ply. He benched 700 at 198, which is a huge bench, right? You know, people discount equipped lifting a lot. I remember I put his shirt on just to try it on, and I have a pretty strong back, right? I think the best I've rode 455 relatively strictly for a set of 5. Now, obviously, there's some body English in there because that's a lot of weights off, right? I'm not doing like, you know, Mike Israetel off the floor Pendlay rows, like with nothing but my arms and my back moving, you know, but it's not a Branch Warren, like, you know, it's not like that. And I put this shirt on and I'm like, he's like, all right, cool. Try to bench. And I'm like standing, right? Like go through the movement. I go, pop, and I get stuck like this far back and I cannot pull this thing back. And, you know, that was pretty eye-opening because he was like, yeah, I have a video of me doing that with 2 plates. And I'm like, really? And he showed me, and he's got 2 plates on this thing, and he goes, boop, gets stuck, and he goes, and it just launches right back up. And like the thing that people, you know, misunderstand about equipped lifting is like the equipment doesn't lift the weight for you. It changes the lift. It's not the same sport.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're benching in a shirt and you're like a millimeter off on your groove, that thing's going to go into your mouth or it's going to go into your stomach. And it's just not going to be a good day for anybody except for the person filming. Because you're like, oh, this is going on. Jim fails.
That's awesome.
You know, yeah, the heaviest in that regard, the heaviest bench I handed off for was like 975, and it was a 7-man lift off.
Jesus.
So I was working this meet in West Virginia, and I'm over the bar, right? And there's 3 guys on either side, and this dumbass, right? I don't remember his name, but Westside put this meet on in West Virginia, and he missed 925 to a 2 board during warmups. I need more weight to get it down there. This thing almost took the guy's head off. Like he got it down, pressed, elbows came straight out, and I'm like throwing my whole body weight back into the rack, holding onto this bar to try and pull it into the upright so we can slide out. It was terrifying. It was terrifying, man. And like all of us were like, fuck! Just we're trying to pull this 975 back into the bench. And like equipped lift, it's a bench. It's not like a rack. It's not like that cool, awesome, you know, Rogue West Side rack that has like the things. It's not like that at all. It's a bench.
Mm-hmm.
Like any powerlifting meet, the bench is the same. And it was cool.
Right.
Cool, to say the least. Yeah. Like really technical cueing doesn't really benefit most athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're talking athletes, we're not talking like bodybuilders or power lifters. We're talking about people that play sports, you know, and generally, you know, I have some Division I college experience. I interned for the Texas Longhorns football team back in 2020 before Herman got fired. And I interned for the head strength coach, Yancey McKnight, most terrifying man I've met in my entire life. He's like 6'6", 320, goatee, talk like this. Like he had every strength coach has a laugh. Whenever he would do something, you make him do like something like the middle of the set, you go, it was absolutely horrible. Terrifying, most terrifying man I've ever met in my entire life. I watched him throw the entire defense out of the weight room one day. He looks at me. He's like, you want to see something cool? And I thought he was going to like show me like some exercise variation or like give me some cue like in coach or whatever. And I'm like, yeah. Let me see, you know, because I'm, you know, an intern. I'm like, yeah, I want to learn, right? And he's like, okay. And like, he just charges around the squat racks because like there's this 10-minute window where you can get into the weight room and you can roll out, you can stretch on your own before the team does the warm up. And he goes, hey, assholes. And they all kind of look at him. And he's like, yeah, you, get the fuck out of my weight room. And they're all like, what? And he goes, did I fucking stutter? Get out. They're all like getting up and like moseying out the door. He's like, fucking hustle, get out the weight room, lazy motherfuckers. And it's raining outside. So like when I was interning, they were building that new end zone in man, I forgot what they renamed the stadium. But they were building that new end zone with the big logo that's in the bleachers, right? And so the weight room was underneath that. So the weight room wasn't in there when I was there. They put it on top of a basketball court in the rec center. It was legit because they built this thing up, all these racks, legit. And even this makeshift weight room was like $1.5 million facility. Absurd. Like each squat rack was double-sided, and the squat rack and like Olympic lifting platform side was an electronic monolift. So literally, like you get underneath it and you just flip a switch to make it go up and down. Oh yeah, that was awesome. So he threw these guys out of the weight room, and it's like pouring down rain. And like he brings all the coaches together. He's like, all right, these guys are tired of shit. You know, we're just gonna cut the volume in half on everything today, and we're gonna tell them to go home and go to bed. And they're like, okay. So like they come in. It was supposed to be like 10 doubles on power clean pull off the floor. And then I think it was like 6 sets of 5 on buffalo bar squat. Huge pet peeve of mine when people say back squat. I can't stand that. I don't know why. I think, you know,
it's like, why do you need that extra?
You've got front squat. So we'll say, here's what happened. Like CrossFit existed, right? And like when CrossFit started, these coaches didn't really coach. CrossFit's cool now, right? And it's like thought out and awesome because you train to compete in CrossFit. It's not like you're doing CrossFit to get a workout and just cramming stuff together. But in order to make things easier to communicate, it was back squat, front squat, right? Back squat didn't exist before CrossFit.
Just
right?
Squat.
You just squat, right? God, that makes me sound like such a freaking old man. And it was just so much stuff. So they cut the sets in half. So they come in and they do like 4 doubles on clean pull, and they do like 3 sets of squats and like the accessory work for the day. And he brings the team together. He's like, look, guys, I know y'all are really tired. So I want you to go home, take a nap before lunch, because they had like this window. You had to go to lunch, you had to sign in, and they had like this whole mess hall specifically for the athletic department. They had a chef in there. They had a lady that would make smoothies. They had a pasta stand. It was awesome. And because we had to sign everybody in, we got to eat for free. So we were just like eating all you can eat, like chicken cacciatore and like flank steak and salmon. And they always had the omelet guy. Always had the omelet guy. The omelet
you were like,
guy.
I'll show you a thing or two.
Yeah. I had these little pans though. I'm like, man, you got. Like, I'm trying to get yoked, man. And this 2-egg pan is not it, bro.
Mm.
But he would make like breakfast tacos and that thing. Man. Anyway. And then he finishes up his talk. He's like, by the way, I'm not saying you have to, but we're going to be in here. We only did half the lift. And then he just walked away. And like every dude is like, so they all like trudge back to their racks and they do the whole workout again.
Yo, what the fuck?
Dude, it was so funny. Because there's like, yeah, we only did half the sets. So they went back and they started again, right? But like without the coaches, they just did it on their own. And like, I had, a reasonable, so I was like, guys, like you did 4 doubles on clean pull. Like just do the clean pull again. And then instead of doing, 3 more sets of 4 heavy, do like, a couple, like it was like 2 sets of 6 or something. You're getting the same reps, go a little bit lighter. You're not going to be able to lift the same weight. And if you do, that's fantastic, but you're going to be totally just destroyed for tomorrow. And, you know, Wednesday is the squat day, right? And Thursday was high speed treads. So it was like a treadmill sprint workout. And they had it set up. They had a system where it like measured per position, like they had an average, they had actual actionable data. This is the beauty of having infinite money, right? They had this is annoying. It's following, dude. With the light from the
from God.
They had average high speed yardage per game per position type. So every conditioning workout, there were 4 each week per position type equaled the high speed yardage of a game, which is nuts. So the linemen were getting like 550 yards on a treadmill in 12 sprints. The linemen. And dude, it was awful. I remember like the first day, these treadmills would go up like 40 miles per hour. Nobody's running that fast, right? I think like that's the highest speed the guys got up to. Like the defensive backs for like the fastest guys on the team, they would get up to like 26 on that thing. And like when you're running on a treadmill, especially a treadmill that runs itself, you never really the treadmill's going faster than you're actually running. That's why running on a treadmill is easier. And the reason is because the ground is moving. You don't have to put as much force into the ground.
Oh, okay.
Because if the treadmill's moving, right, the ground's already moving. You just have to pick your legs up fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
So that the tread day was more conditioning. It wasn't necessarily speed development. So that's why it's always funny to me when they're those Instagram videos of people booking it on the treadmill. Oh, she's running 23 miles per hour. Like, is she though? Because like when you're sprinting on the ground, you have to push the ground away from you. But on a treadmill, the treadmill's running, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to push the ground. Your foot hits, you cycle your leg through in your gait, and you just continue to do that. You're not really running that fast. You know, which is why, you know, people who train for like marathons and stuff on a treadmill, they're 10 times more exhausted because one, when you've taken physics. So like, you know, like if I'm standing on the ground, I'm pushing into the ground with my body weight and the ground is pushing back up with an equal amount of weight, right? So like if I'm sprinting and my leg hits the ground, that force through my one limb can equal up to 5 times my body weight for that split second that my foot's on the ground. Plus you have to push into the ground on top of that, right? So like the force on a treadmill that's going through your body is significantly less. Therefore, it's easier to sprint at the higher speed. So you're not really running that fast. Now, if it's a treadmill that you have to push, that's a different story, but it's still not the same. So like those air assault runners that are like, oh, you're running this fast. You're not really. It's better than a treadmill that runs itself because you're having to push it. But once that thing keeps going, once that thing starts going, dude, that thing just flies. Yeah. It's not like you're continually having to apply the same amount of force over and over because it's already going, you know. So yeah.
You got some stories from those days, I'm sure.
That was the time of my life, man. I miss Texas.
So where all have you been from strength and conditioning? Like,
so
bird's eye view.
So the first job I had in strength and conditioning was that internship. Now I'd always like written program and coached like my friends that powerlifted. Buddy of mine, Luke, he's actually in physical therapy school at Chapel Hill in North Carolina. You know, I trained with him. I trained with Ricky, obviously. I trained with Big Rig a little bit. Big Rig Dylan Griggs back in the day. You know, that was always a fun time. There were a few times I worked out with Joe Sullivan back when he was in Columbus, and you know, I would cue him a few times. I didn't like coach him, right, because he was working with somebody, but like, you know, I have a really good eye, and he acknowledged that. He's like, dude, you have a really good eye. So like, I'd always help him with deadlift. It was never like squat or bench or anything. But I have a pretty good pull for not really training my deadlift. So
That's wild. Yeah, like 625 or something for that.
I think my best pull is like 672 in a meet, and during that prep, I pulled over 600 2 times. So, and it was 4 weeks out. I pulled 655, and then a week later, did I lose you?
Oh no,
I hit my keyboard. I hit my keyboard. I was, what in the world? It just popped up a new window. I pulled 630. It was like 620 or 630. But during the training for that, I didn't deadlift over like 510 pounds. I did heavy good mornings off of the straps, and I would do real heavy good mornings after I did the lighter deadlifts around 70-75%. So like I cued him a couple times. My friend Wyatt, actually, he was getting programmed. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. He was getting programmed by somebody, but he wasn't getting coached. So I coached him, and he actually he ended up benching. He benched 408 at, I think it was like 180 or something. He benched 408 at 180. Wyatt's incredibly strong. Dumbest smart person I've met in my entire life. And then he ended up he went to IPL Worlds, and he squatted 611 for a drug test world record. So like I did that before strength and conditioning for athletes. My first exposure coaching wise to that was the internship. And then when I had come back, I went and I helped Luke with his high school football team for a couple days. Luke lives down in Southern Ohio. That's where he's from. It's like a D5. I went down there and I ran the guys through the lifts. It was like in the summer before the season started. I think it was like mid-June. And the one coach was like, so how long are you staying? And I'm like, yes, I'm here. And I became the head strength coach for that football team for the preseason and the season before I got a job working at a place called the Spot Athletics. And I worked at the Spot for a little under 2 years before I moved to D1. And, I learned a lot about coaching at the Spot. And that was an experience. Yeah. We're not going to go too deep into that. But that was an experience to say the least.
Seems like for the Spot, everybody, like I know a lot of like respectable coaches work there. Everybody moves on.
Yeah. Bryce worked there. Kirk worked there. Kelsey.
Did you ever meet Zach Gallman?
Yeah, dude. Zach Gallman's the man. I remember I've had a few umbilical hernias, right? Because when I was younger, it was like, oh, if you deadlift and squat heavy enough, you don't need to train your abs. So I never did, and I ended up getting these hernias. And I remember a week before my surgery, I was like, I'm going to max my squat out. So I did, and it was at 614. And I remember he's like, don't even. I got like 495 or whatever for like a triple. It might have been 550. I don't remember. It was between 5 and 550. And he's like, don't even bother unracking that. I'm front squatting. And I'm like, what? Yeah. And then like half hour later, he front squatted 700. And I'm like, kiss my ass, dude. Yeah. Zach Gallman's the man.
Yeah, I worked with him when I was training at 614. He taught me a lot. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, he's a good dude. He's good. Everybody that like trained at 614 is like a good person. It's a good vibe over there. So if you're in Columbus, check out 614 Barbell. It's not so much a bodybuilding gym. It's kind of like in between a bodybuilding and a powerlifting gym. Great vibe. I love the color red. The color blue freaks me out. I actually found out in doing some nervous system work with my chiropractor that blue actually triggers my sympathetic nervous system. So I literally get triggered by the color of the sky, which is stupid as hell. So like there's like a nervous system reset system called RPR. I don't know if you've heard of RPR. There's RPR and Be Activated. It's based off of like acupressure. And he had me like, look at this thing. And then we did like an arm test where you push down or whatever. He did this reset on me and he's like, look at the blue again. And my arm didn't move. I'm like, dude, that's dumb as hell. And he's like, yeah, like your blue messes with your visual field in terms of nervous system stability. I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like that
Damn.
is so weird. Yeah, so like I would always remember when I trained at American Barbell, the old place, and everything was blue.
Oh
Everything just
yeah, yeah.
everything just felt so much heavier. And I'm like, this is
That's
so dumb.
crazy.
And I would train at 614 and I wouldn't have that problem. Like, yeah, everything feels good. It's really weird. Once I learned more about like the nervous system stuff, I realized I didn't know anything about the human body, like at
Oh
all.
gosh. That's interesting, dude. That'd be a
Yeah,
whole rabbit hole for me to dive down because I don't know much of anything about it.
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting because like the nervous system ties everything together. So like there's a really good book called like The Body Keeps the Score, right? And it's about how like emotional trauma can lead to physical dysfunction
Hmm.
and like physical ailments, and that is 100% true. And I've had a lot of stuff with like the high school shooting and like other things that have I've never worked through.
Hmm.
And for the longest time, it was like, oh, I'm just injury prone because I would always get these little dings. Like I tore my pec in 2017. That was a big one, but I'd always have like, oh yeah, my elbow. I can't bench today because my elbow. Oh, my knee. This and that and the other. And it was very strange because like I started I signed up for therapy. I go through BetterHelp and I do virtual counseling, doing that and like focusing on breathing correctly and like doing all this RPR and stuff, to like reset my nervous system. It's a misnomer. So like if you're listening to the podcast and you're like, you can't reset your nervous system, you're absolutely correct, right? But that's the best layman term that I can, like your nervous system's always on. Parasympathetic, sympathetic are always on. Is what system's biased in the other. So what ends up happening if you have all this unpacked trauma, your body lives more biasing sympathetic rather than parasympathetic, and we want to be resting and digesting most of the time, right? But if you have all this stuff like in your head that's like messing with you, your brain is your nervous system. Your brain, your conscious and subconscious are connected, to your body. So if you have all this stuff going on in your brain and you're biasing your sympathetic nervous system more than the parasympathetic, right? There's going to be some sort of issue when it comes to your body because your brain connects to your, obviously, right? It's how like the subconscious connects to the physical body. And like it sounds kind of hokey, but like when you look at it in that lens rather than like, oh, I'm resetting my diaphragm, right? You can't really, I turned into Jim Gaffigan for a second. When you can't reset your diaphragm, right? Because it's always on, right? But it's like how can I tweak this sequence of firing based on my nervous system? Because everything affects our nervous system. So like, how is rubbing my sternum going to do anything? You're putting a stimulus in and that affects your brain, right? Like same thing with the eyes, looking at the color, right? Like that's an input into your nervous system. So it's all about how your body responds to inputs and outputs and things like that. So inputs affect your outputs. Obviously, we know that from nutrition. If I'm not eating food, I'm probably not going to be very jacked, right? I'm probably not going to be very strong at the gym that day. It's the same thing when it comes to sensory.
Hmm.
And that is that's a whole, I don't understand all of that. So I don't want to speak too heavily on it. But that's why the system of RPR works on some people better than it does others. And that's why it doesn't have a whole lot of scientific research on it because it's not always replicable. So if you have someone who's not jacked up in the nervous system, it's not going to work very well or at all, because they're not messed up. Right. So it's, going back to like, I thought I was really, really injury prone. And, once I started going to therapy and started unpacking things started hurting less. And, you know, there's a lot of factors that go into this. I'm not saying, you know, oh yeah, I go to therapy, all of a sudden I don't get hurt anymore. But like, you know, when the nervous system switches more to bias, that rest and digest, right? Things improve, right? Like when you feel good mentally, your sleep improves. You're more likely to follow your meal plan, right? Because you're not going to like stress eat. You're not going to, you know, you're not going to go to the BP and eat a bunch of taquitos, right, off the roller, right? You know, you're probably, you know, going to be drinking more water and less caffeine because you're sleeping better. So all these things go together. It's not like a one-stop shop. It affects everything. So like when your mental starts to be more in tune, right, and your body comes back down into that rest digest, you know, sleep improves. Sleep is a big thing, right? And then that sleep also then affects your mental health, right? So it's like this whole, it's just everything ties together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being able to draw those connections as to why something may or may not work. So it's not like, oh yeah, I went and got a massage and I feel great, or you know, I stretched and all of a sudden, you know, I slept better. It's like, okay, well, why did this stretching? Why, you ever stretch before bed and you're like, man, I slept like a rock, right? Have you ever done that? You ever like stretch before bed?
No, honestly, no. I should
Right.
probably.
So, you know, everybody should stretch. You know, this is a very do as I say, not as I do profession, right? But like, if you ever like go get a massage, you ever get like a really like big, like deep tissue
Mm-hmm.
deal, you ever shit your guts out after?
No, I felt like
No, but because like some, if you have like some like real like shit in your muscles, you have to work out. Um, Sometimes like you'll end up just blasting ass in the toilet,
whoa.
and it's not because like you're flushing out toxins, right? It's because that massage brings you down into that rest digest.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of like, oh my god, I'm in fight or flight, I shouldn't be taking a huge dump right now, your body's like, I can relax, and then all of a sudden you're just like, it's like the floodgates, right?
That's
It's
awesome.
yeah. So like that does happen with some people, but again, it's not with everybody because everybody's brain is different, and that's what makes us human, right? So um, kind of like how when some people eat asparagus, right? Some people have smelly pee, some people don't.
Hmm.
Not everyone can actually, that's called asparagus acid, right? Is what makes asparagus pee smell bad. And some people can smell it, some people can't. Everybody is different. So some people have like different responses to different inputs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like big deep tissue look like Graston and cupping or whatever, like, yeah, everybody gets sore from all that stuff, right? But then like, some people, if they're really, really like up here and then all of a sudden they're relaxed, it's like, oh yeah. And then like they go to poop in the morning the next day and all of a sudden it's like, I can't stop pooping, which is awesome, right? You feel like, oh yeah, I got a massage, I lost all this weight. You pooped a lot, bro.
That's
Right?
awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Yo,
So
well, I don't want to keep you too much. I know we got to get our days started, but I think a part two is definitely in the cards for us
dude,
to delve
absolutely.
into some more topics. But yeah,
For
man, I
sure.
appreciate your perspective. Like getting so kind of in the vacuum of like just strength and hypertrophy training. It's cool to
Yeah.
see like other sides from the athlete development, for performance and
Yeah.
just like hearing other trains of thought, dude. So I appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we talked a little bit about the queuing for athletes that are developing, and that goes back into the nervous system as well. So like, like not being able to tell your hands from your feet and whatnot. So like if, something that is become more like relevant is like how your feet tie into your squat and your deadlift and your bench and stuff like that. Big, like, powerlifting community, everybody has a foot fetish now, right? So like if you're working with a kid and they don't know what their feet are, quite literally, like they don't know where their feet are. That's why, when kids are doing speed ladders, they look at their feet because they don't know where their feet are, which is why ladders are great for kids, not necessarily great for pro athletes. Looks really cool, but you can't tell me that Nick Chubb doesn't know where his feet are. Does he really need to do speed ladders, or could he, do something else to improve his footwork?
Mm-hmm.
Great for a warm up, but like he knows where his feet are. That's what ladders are for. I'm not going to tell a 12 or 13-year-old kid, make your foot a tripod, torque outward on, they don't know
Mm-hmm.
what that means. And if you give them that cue, then they're going to get frustrated, and then their squat might look worse, as opposed to someone like you or me or Ricky, like, oh yeah, like you can do that because our brains are fully developed. Hopefully mine might not be. It's the CTE, but we're able to do that. But someone who just learned how to goblet squat, what are the big rocks, right? So like the analogy that's used is like, what rock can I throw into this pond to make the biggest splash? And when you're coaching athletes, that's the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because when you give super technical cues to athletes, it kind of does them a disservice, even if they're high level, because the lifting is not their sport. They need those technical things for their sport. They don't need to have a squat that looks like, how like Joe Sullivan's world record squat. Like their squat doesn't need to look like that. Their squat needs to be good.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, right? It doesn't need to be this, that, and the other. You don't need to worry super much about their bracing mechanics. You want them to breathe correctly, but at the end of the day, like if you're playing soccer and you're sprinting, are you bracing? No. Bracing is rigid. Sports are fluid, right? So like, okay, like if someone's, I remember I was cueing Demo. Demo actually just declared for the NFL draft out of Texas. And, they don't squat with belts, it's football, right? And he's got like 455 on there, and he cannot get it. He can't hit depth. It's fine. Depth is arbitrary to a degree, right, for powerlifting. But if you're playing football, you don't need to go butt to calves. Like it's not like, can you do it safely? Can you load it? Are you getting enough range of motion to be applicable to your sport? Usually, what that looks like is a little bit below a trap bar deadlift in terms of squat depth. Is it wonderful? No. Like there are purists that'll say, oh, you got to squat all the way down, blah, 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 blah. There's no point in time when you're in that level of knee flexion playing sports. There's no. Are the mechanics good? Do they hurt? No. Fantastic. Can we load it? Yes. Wonderful. Is it going to be consistent every time? More or less. Fantastic. They play football. They're not squatters. Fantastic. But I told him, like, if you were to cue someone on bracing, right? Someone that's a lifter, not an athlete, what would that typically look like? Okay, make sure, you are, keep your rib cage pulled down. You want to inflate your midsection 365 degrees, and then you want to, bear down on that. Very important. You can't forget the old Kegel. You gotta get that pelvic floor. It's the Coke can analogy, right? You got a bottom of the Coke can, right? You gotta. That's why the squat plug joke came about, right?
Yeah.
You gotta clench that butthole a little bit, right? Now, those aren't super technical cues for bracing, but that's a lot of information, right? But like if you only care about your squat, that's fantastic. The playbook for Texas was like as thick as super training. Like this is the playbook.
Jeez.
And so like that's where that needs to go. So when you're cueing an athlete, how can I get him to brace as easily as possible?
Mm-hmm.
Right? To be slightly effective. It does not have to be perfect because he's not a squatter. He doesn't need a perfect squat. He needs a good squat. So I told him, you know, when you're going to tackle somebody and you go to like hit him, you hold your breath, right? You tense up. He's like, yeah. I was like, cool. I want you to do that and then squat.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, dude, it didn't feel like I have anything on my back at all. And I'm like, there you go. Fantastic. Wonderful. Great.
Nice. That's
And
awesome.
so it's like super technical cueing for athletes. And he's an elite athlete. You know, he's declared for the NFL draft, right? And like that's a very basic, simple cue. But like when you're training kids 6, 7, 10, 12 years old, and they're goblet squatting a 36-pound kettlebell, do they really need to brace?
Yeah.
Don't exhale at the bottom.
Right.
Right? Hold your breath, squat, take a breath at the top.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even need to do that. It's like, all right, cool. You're going to stand with your feet shoulder width apart, toes pointed out slightly. You're going to squat all the way down and stand back up. And then boom, you get them squatting. And then it's like, all right, then you correct. Like, hey, make sure your legs follow your feet, right? Because you invariably you're going to get some sort of valgus knee, and it's not because they have knee valgus; it's because they don't know where their legs are supposed to go. You know, so like they're like, oh yeah, you got this, you need to do this and that and the other. It's like they just don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
They're kids. Like you're 12 years old, the chances of you having like deficient movement is very low. You just don't know how to do it. The only type of deficient movement that I've noticed is hip hinge because they're sitting in school all day. Getting kids to hinge is the hardest thing on the planet. And it's not really hard to fix, but we can go into hinge mechanics for youth athletes on part 2.
Yes, sir. Dude, yeah. Once again, I appreciate you. We'll wrap it
Dude,
up
I
there.
appreciate you, man.
Yeah, lots of knowledge dropped, and we'll have to get a time for part 2 very shortly because there's a lot more to get into.
Are you in town right now, man?
I'm gonna be back on Friday.
You're back on Friday. How long are you in?
Probably the week, like until the next week.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Definitely gonna be over at American Barbell a couple times. And
okay. Yeah. Let me know. I'll shoot you my schedule because we have part-time guy working, so I have a little bit more leeway next week. But we should definitely train. I know Ricky and I wanted to check out Spark Society. He's been there a couple of times. I haven't been there.
Is that the newer gym that's on like High Street or some shit?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's kind of like a gym thought gym now.
Yeah.
So we'd fit in great. Yeah.
Oh
We'll wear
my
like
God.
short shorts. We'll wear some Gucci daddies. We'll hit some legs.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
Absolutely. All right, brother. I gotta hop off here. I gotta drive to Pickerington and I live in Grandview. So.
Oh, you got a little bit of a hike. All right. Well, thank you very much. And we'll catch you in the next one, man.
Sounds good, brother. You have a good day.